Hello and welcome. In this video, I want to touch on the 5 questions that you should ask whoever is responsible for your marketing, whether it's an agency, a professional, a freelancer, or someone on your team. 5 questions that as a business owner, you should definitely be asking that who is responsible for your marketing. And the reason for it is because it will lead to not only just sustainable growth, but a healthier relationship and a healthier partnership between you and that individual. Because way too often, where there's a lot of angst in that professional relationship is a result of not having these types of conversations and having these types of conversations early. So there's a lot of misunderstandings, not being on the same page, being frustrated by the results, being frustrated by the how long things might take, being frustrated by the, misunderstanding of the expectation around communication, and all sorts of things, right, that can strain a relationship between you and the marketing professional. And you should absolutely, as the business owner, view it as one of your most important professional relationships. So not only just to be respectful, not only to kind of, be mindful of the advice that you're getting and the professionalism of that individual, but be conscious of that this is a relationship that you need to manage and nurture and grow. Like you would a client, like you would, key suppliers. Very important that you treat this relationship as one of your most important, because you're actually asking this professional, this marketer, to speak on your behalf to your customers. It's a big deal, right? They are responsible for communicating to your potential customers, right? They are the voice of your business. That is a big ask, a big responsibility that you're putting on them. So you want to make sure that this is a relationship that is strengthened and nurtured and grown over time. So what are the 5 questions? So the first question, and definitely the most important question, it is, what does success look like? It is not enough to say, we just want to grow our business. I just want the phone to ring more. You need specifics. You need to be very clear, right? So you need to say, if it's more phone calls, currently I get 10 phone calls a week. After 3 months, I want to get to 20 phone calls a week, right? If it's sales, be specific. So currently we sell 10 of our premium service. I want to sell within 3 months, 20 of our premium services per week, right? Be specific, be really clear, right? So you want to have numbers, right? And numbers that you both can track, right? So you have both a visibility to it in terms of, here's what's happening now, here's what we want to get to, right? So making sure that's clear and putting a timestamp on it as well, because this is where you create that accountability. Because where the first kind of misinformation or miscommunication, or where the relationship starts to deteriorate very early on, is not on the same page in terms of how long it's going to take to go from point A to point B. Too many times that I've heard, work with clients and they've said, oh, great, give you a couple $100. I'm looking to get, results in 2 weeks. I've got to kind of take pause and say, no, that's not how this works. Particularly something like Facebook marketing or social media marketing. It takes time to kind of build an audience, to kind of provide them with a series of content that then leads to sales, leads to conversion. Plus, as a marketer, there's only so much that they're responsible for. They're just lead generation, right? And it's still your responsibility as business owner to, one, provide the content, provide the messaging, provide the consumer experiences that the marketing professional can share with others, but also it's more likely your responsibility to convert as well. So you own the sales experience and you own the consumer experience as well. So there's a lot of factors that come into it. So it's really important to be clear as to what success look like. What are the kind of the key metrics that we're going after? So that's only very tactful in terms of those numbers. If you're in more of a partnership type marketing arrangement and kind of building the brand, you might be working over a longer period of time, so 9 months, 12 months, multiple years. And it might be, metrics like, cost per acquisition. It might be metrics in terms of brand awareness. It might be, overall profitability growth, percent margin increases. There's all sorts of kind of, a variety of metrics that can kind of reflect the performance you're getting from marketing over a time span. But very, very important that you're very open and candid about what success actually looks like. Write it down, Make sure it's an email, that way there's still no confusion, and then you're very clear in terms of what success looks like. And actually leads into question 2. So question 2 is, what happens if we don't hit that number, right? In other words, what is our gap to goal plan? Now, the reason why it's important to have this conversation up front, right, is because it is very difficult to guarantee results in marketing. There's a lot of factors involved. You've got competitor activity, you've got changes in technology, changes in tactics. You also got some of the challenges as it relates to the business itself, whether it's, thinking about the messaging, positioning strategy, consumer experiences, external factors like consumer advocacy, all sorts of things that kind of play in a role in terms of whether or not we kind of hit those numbers. So you can have a great strategy, but the execution is what kind of gets you there. And there's all sorts of things that kind of disrupt that execution. So very important up front to kind of agree, well, what do we do? If after 3 months we fall short, what does it look like? Right? And that discussion is important. So what is the gap to goal plan, right? And what is that agreement? So is it, and I usually do not recommend a discount, right? So for many business owners, they're tempted to kind of go, if you don't hit the number, I don't pay for a month or I don't pay for 2 months. But all that does is kind of put additional strain on the marketer, right? And you're not, it's not strategic, and it's going more likely to affect long-term relationship and long-term results. The best thing to do is kind of focus on value add. What else can you do? What additional time can you put in? Additional investments you can put in, additional software you can use. What else can you do on top of the initial scope and initial agreement to close that gap, right? So maybe they might have, why don't we add additional ads to the campaign? Maybe it's, increase the network of keywords we do. Maybe they might bring in discounted photography or video work. All sorts of interesting value add that will help close that gap, right? That's the way to kind of approach it, but be really clear, right? In terms of, so if we don't hit the number, what do we do? The third question, and again, this is really important too, is how do we review those results, right? Another way to think about this is, what is the communication expectation between us? Right? Because again, this is where a huge amount of confusion tends to take place, is that the agency might say something like monthly reporting, but for them, monthly reporting might mean an automated report that can kind of get sent to you every month that provides some of the analytics, a little bit of commentary to give you an idea of kind of how things are performing. It might be an online dashboard that provides, similar in terms of numbers. Maybe it means a 1-hour phone call every month to kind of go through what's working, not working. But also you want to clarify in terms of, within the month, if you've got questions, if you've got issues, if you've got suggestions, what is the appropriate level of communication? Have they set aside 2 hours for ongoing exchange, like, time for responding to emails, time for phone calls, trying to kind of catch in, review content, like what is the expectations when it comes to communication? It's really important because they might be assuming less than an hour a month of actual email and phone calls, right? And you might be expecting anytime I have a question, I can call you, right? So I might be planning to call you twice a week or 3 times a week because you're a very engaged, hands-on business owner. You understand how important marketing is. But it's best to have this conversation up front than having this conversation or this weird argument as the relationship builds with the agencies, like, we didn't budget for this level of communication. Or you are kind of like waiting for the report or waiting for a phone call or an update, not realizing that the communication was meant to be automated. So very important that discussion happens up front. How do we review performance, right? So the 3 questions so far: what does success look like? What is our gap to goal plan? How do we communicate? The 4th question is, how can I help? This is a relationship, right? This is a partnership. Whether you're, even those programs or where you're spending less than $2,000 a month, likely in what I call formulaic marketing, even those type of things, there's a lot that you can do as a business owner to help accelerate results. Right? It might be the kind of content you might, they might ask you, well, can you do more photography? Can you get your phone out and take some more pictures of you at work, or take some more interesting photos? Maybe share some more stories that you've got to kind of help kind of personalize the content a little bit more. Maybe it's kind of be more proactive in terms of securing reviews from customers, securing those kind of testimonials that can be used for social proofing, all sorts of things. But it's really important, again, up front to be really clear on, well, what can I do to ensure that you're delivering the results that I expect? Because it's a partnership, all right? So how can I help you? And the last question, and this is an odd one, but I also think it's really important, is how do we celebrate the wins, right? Now, the reason why this is important is, again, you've got to treat this relationship you have with the marketing manager like you would a client, right? Like you would a customer or key supplier. You want to make sure that the person who you're entrusting to communicate with your customer, that this relationship is building, it's strengthening, the trust is getting stronger. And taking the time to celebrate the wins or celebrating the major milestones is important, right? Maybe it's, grabbing a beer down the pub or a coffee catch up, exchanging of flowers and cookies, I don't know. But whatever it is that you guys kind of agree that periodically, maybe it's once a year, every 6 months, but some sort of schedule, some sort of way of kind of like, you know what, this is amazing. Maybe you want to get together and, take some photos and kind of share it online, but some way of kind of celebrating the milestones, celebrating the wins, to kind of reinforce the relationship, but also enforces or encourages self-reflection as well, right? So when you kind of get together, celebrating the wins, you're kind of looking back and going, yeah, these things worked really well. These things, we learned from, and kind of get motivated and excited for the year ahead, because you don't want the relationship to become stale, right? You want, because again, this is someone who's almost like a staff member. You want to motivate them, excite them. You want that marketing agency or that marketing professional who might be managing multiple clients to like you the most, or at least the top 3, right? Because you want them to put in that little extra bit of effort. So that's what I recommend you do. So they're the 5 questions. I highly recommend you ask those 5 questions of your marketing agency, your marketing professional, your freelancer, whoever's responsible for the marketing efforts in your team. Make sure you're doing that. Ask those questions and focus in on building that relationship over the long term. So my name is Luke Hawley, Managing Director of Marketing Broker Australia, and I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks.